Hello, welcome to Goose TV. I'm your host, Charlie Stivers, and today I'm excited to introduce Benjamin Diggles, a leading expert in blockchain technology with over 25 years experience in data and tech innovation. Benjamin collaborates with enterprise companies, the Department of Defense, and other federal agencies to revolutionize communication infrastructure. His work focuses on secure communication solutions for smart cities, autonomous vehicles, and AI, and creating a proof of source that ensures data integrity through confidence scoring. Based in Denver, Colorado, Benjamin not only drives strategic initiatives at Constellation Network, but also inspires cross-departmental collaboration. He is committed to mentoring the next generation, sharing his extensive career insights to uplift and guide future tech leaders. At Constellation, he oversees partnerships across enterprise, federal, academia, consortia sectors, fostering sustainable growth and innovation in blockchain. Welcome to the show, Diggles. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me here. Hey, I'll tell you what, that intro bio is quite a mouthful, but 25 years tech experience is just a guy with a laptop for 25 years, but
Love it.
There's more to it. Thanks for having me, Charlie.
Thank you. Excited to have you here. So you have all kinds of cool stuff going on. You know, a lot of us in the industry think of you as like a rainmaker in addition to being a leadership. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for your leadership. It's pretty special what you've been able to develop and pull together. So let's jump into it.
All right.
Yeah, so I think one of the primary things that people are excited about is what your work has compromised with the Department of Defense, some of the things we know you can't talk about, but, and let's focus on what's in it for all of us as people, as users, and, hopefully a lot of good is coming out of what the DoD is doing. Everyone kind of gets the creeps when you hear that, but yeah, let's see what your journey has taken the DoD and Constellation along for.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Well, for those who don't know, I've known Charlie for a couple of years now, met through the industry. It's one of the benefits of being in such a community-focused industry is that I get to meet cool people like you. And I was impressed with Charlie from the moment I met you, and that's why I've always tried to be as supportive as possible. I believe in what you're doing. I believe in Goose Magazine, and you're a great guy. A lot of people probably just don't know that from seeing you on a screen, but I can validate. Met Charlie many times in person, and he's a salt of the earth person. So I really appreciate you, all your kind words and having me here, my friend. And yeah, so I mean, just to kind of, understanding the audience here probably is a little bit curious. What's in it for all of us? What is this industry all about, right? And I think it's, unfortunately, when I talk about community, it actually is a little bit of an exclusive community in industry. I'm sure you've probably seen that. A lot of these, I guess, Bitcoin maximalists and whatnot you hear about is like, you should have listened, they got these t-shirts on about how they're all millionaires now because they were buying Bitcoin when it was, a few pennies or a few dollars and whatnot. And that doesn't really jive with me very well because I think it does exclude a lot of people. I think it's kind of like, oh, you're not smart enough to get this, or the barrier to entry is too complicated, and we're not going to tell you about it because we were here first and whatnot. And I feel like I'm a representative of someone that's really trying to change that narrative and be more inclusive. But I think one of those things, which I've recognized when I talk to a lot of folks, especially people who are rather super young or people that are a little bit older, is they hear the term Web3 and they're like, what the heck is Web3? We didn't know there was a Web 2 or a Web 1. And I've been fortunate enough because I feel like I'm 100 years old, but I went through high school in the 90s and experienced the advent of the internet, right? Which was really Web 1.0, which was nothing more than like this glorified directory, like somebody put a phone book on a computer that allowed you to connect with either individuals or institutions for information. It was like a glorified indexed directory. And I'm only painting this for those listeners that may want to know a little bit how this came about, that things really exploded on the internet, which they had no idea it was going to be as big as it was. They did not really build this thing thinking it was going to be as big as it is. When Web 2.0 came out, and that was really around allowing people to connect with each other, but they called it the read-write web, allowing individuals to publish, right? Because prior to that, if you wanted to build like a website. It cost a lot of money and you had to have a lot of skills. It just wasn't easy. But then things like Blogspot came out, social media, mobile phones, like it was really this big movement in the early to mid 2000s that created what they dubbed the splinternet, which was the read-write web that allowed anybody to express themselves and connect with each other and such on the internet. Now we've got like TikTok, where any kid can anybody can grab a phone, and they're participating in this global communication phenomenon. So now we're in Web 3.0, and I'm sure there's probably going to be 4, 5, 6.0, who knows, right? But I love Web 3.0 because what it really is the internet of value, right? If you think about the first internet of information, the second internet was the internet of attention, which was really why advertising has got such a big grip over the modern internet today. We're now in the internet of value. And that's why I love, talking with people like you, Charlie, that actually get it and that are stewards or leaders trying to really push the education and understanding of what the heck is this and how do I get involved? And I think if you can answer those two questions for most people, the world's going to be a better place, because I think that we're fixing a lot of the issues that plagued us with the precursor internets that have led to companies like Facebook being worth almost $1 trillion based off of data mining alone, right? That's crazy. Most people don't even know that. So thinking about Constellation, we are a Web3 company, right? And what that means is we've effectively figured out new communication pipes, new internet called blockchain, right? And we're not the only ones to have figured it out. Many other different ecosystems and companies have built blockchains, and we're very supportive of this growing movement. But I have this strong belief system that if you can fractionalize and change the pipes of communication, as well as fractionalize and change the pipes of money, you now have new pipes that allow for use cases and transactions in a way that have never been possible before, that have been sort of set aside for those large companies that have a foothold on the existing internet that aren't allowing other people to participate because the barrier is just too high. It's not a lot different than Web 1.0 when people couldn't make websites because the barrier was so high. Now we're seeing the game is changing. And so I'm going to pause for a second for you, Charlie, and just make sure that you're tracking right now and that everything I'm saying makes sense.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
sweet.
I'll interject if needed. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Sometimes I just make sure I'm not talking too much, but hopefully this is all making sense, because I think it kind of gives people an idea of where this came from and why we're here now. What the heck is digital assets and what the heck is immutability? Like, those two things are very, very powerful statements that candidly, before blockchain, I'd never even used the term immutability. And now I use it all the time as if it's just part of everyone's vernacular. But if we have these fractional pipes of Web3, which is the internet of value, it allows people to participate in the value exchange of different transactions that currently they can't, right? For example, you got Facebook that has all your data. They're selling it to third parties. You have medical companies that have all your data. They're selling it to third parties. They're making all this money and you're not. It's really not any more profound than that. And we're seeing a cultural shift that I feel is going to hit a terminal velocity and a breaking point, where society is only going to gravitate towards brands and institutions that effectively bring them into that value exchange, right? You think about like Brave.com being a new browser that challenges Chrome. Chrome makes a bunch of money off of your data as you use it. Brave actually rewards you for that data with a wallet that gives you fractionalized micropayments. There's that fractionalized pipes of money for a microservices, which is your attention. Like, you watch an ad, instead of the money going to an ad exchange, you get some of that money, right? And so there's a lot to pack into Web3, and hopefully just that flyby gives people an idea of like what the heck Web3 actually means. Is that there's been a reconstitution of the technology and finance in a combination that has allowed a value exchange never expressed before globally, not just for America or emerging markets. And at Constellation, we saw a huge opportunity in this Candidly, we drafted our network off of IOTA. If anybody has ever heard of IOTA, they were one of the OG or original gangsters when it comes to DAG technology, which is a directed acyclic graph. Not super important to understand exactly what that means, but it is an architectural approach to this new internet that allows for an insane throughput of transactions, even well beyond like Visa, as an example. Like, we're looking at a new frontier of big data throughput. And so we thought, well, why don't we build a blockchain that has a strong utility around the validation and management of complex data types? And really, everything is data when it comes to digital, right? Doesn't matter if it's a sensor technology. Even what we're doing right now is being streamed in packets of data, and people are consuming it through data. Everything is data. So, and that also includes the digital financial transactions, which is cryptocurrency. So we set out to really focus on data. Of course, our first expression was our token, DAG. So we decided to hearken our token symbol after our network architecture, DAG. So you can check it out on like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. And that's how we effectively showed that our network worked, right? That was our mainnet 1.0 test net to show like, hey, we have a native currency. We can do what the others can do. We can do it more efficiently. We can do it in a way that not only the transaction's instant, but there's no fees when exchanging, which is a huge upgrade from the predecessors such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I'm not pooping on those guys. I think they're amazing, right? It's just a different blend that for us was really focused on the legacy. And there's no better legacy institution in the world that is any larger than the Department of Defense, right? They have more infrastructure than just about any, in my understanding, any institution on the planet, as well as the biggest yearly budget of any institution on the planet. And for those that don't know, the modern internet came from DARPA, then it went to CERN, then it went to Sir Tim Berners-Lee that created the World Wide Web crawler. And so I believe that with America, this innovation belongs within our government to make way for the commercial adoption and adapting of this technology to effectively fix a lot of the issues that are plaguing the current internet today. And so I'm going to pause after this, but I just will say it doesn't take anybody unless, I guess if your head is in the sand, to know that there's a hack almost every day that's leaking sensitive information that really affects a material impact on all of our lives. And so this is sort of where we came from and really focused our network is on data and why we've gotten involved with the DoD. And I'm happy to go a little bit deeper into the use case of what we're doing and divulge more if you'd like.
Yeah, and one of the particulars, as internet users, we're all used to HTTP, HTTPS. You guys came up with your own protocol, hgtp. Maybe you can share with us a little bit, more specifics of how that is all evolving and could be like the network of the future or the network of blockchains.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, man. Yeah, so we are a communications protocol. A lot of people don't know that TCP/IP, which is our internet, is a communications protocol, and it utilizes the communication standard known as Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is HTTP. Ours is Hypergraph Transfer Protocol, which is a mathematical approach. We didn't just come up with hypergraph because we thought it was a cool, word. So you can look up hypergraph and you'll get a chance to check that out. But hgtp is what we believe can replace not the internet. So I want to be very clear and double underscore that we're not trying to replace the internet, but rather replace the sections or at least bundle up the pieces that are the most sensitive that we have to ensure have not been hacked, spoofed, or tampered with when in transit, right? I often talk about like that old telephone game we used to play when we were kids, right? You'd whisper in somebody's ear and it'd go around a circle. And then by the time it gets to the end, it sounds nothing like what it was started out as, right? And that's a problem. That's sort of a human condition, is that just, my wife may say something to me and then she tells me to tell it to somebody else. I may lose something in translation. I don't have it verbatim, but I do my best and I paraphrase. But if that happens long enough, as further you get away from the source, the more corrupt and I guess inauthentic the original intention of the message would be. And so when we look at the communications being handled by the internet, there's a lot of really great stuff that's taking place that does not need to be replaced. That said, Say you did want to share something very sensitive like banking information, your social security number, things about your children that are very sensitive you don't want out there. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to put a validation criteria against that, or a walled garden, if you will, around that data or that information or that communication, and know that once it's received, that it only went to the right person that had to sign for it, and the quality assurance was there to assure that nothing has been changed, tampered, or spoofed. In that, there's a huge world of opportunity for what we're driving as secure information sharing. And so with that secure information sharing, the ability to have that fidelity between 2 points revolutionizes what I think is a major breakdown in trust in the world right now. Well, a mind melter is that, we send as a society, a global society, almost 400 billion emails a day. Like, it's an insane number, right? And then you add on like WhatsApp app messages and text messages, Slack messages. It just goes on and on. But it shows you that the true potential and I would say the genesis of what the internet was supposed to be as a communication protocol is allowing us to communicate via pictures, videos, with words and all of that stuff. But blockchain is here to solve these issues that I feel like are just compounding by the day, right? And so that sort of kind of gives you an idea where hgtp came out of from the traditional http mindset.
And then can you elaborate on how http is being used to maybe enhance data security within DoD, and like particularly, how you're already in coordination with the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Transcom?
Yeah, absolutely. And this will probably be interesting to the non-technical people because I like to use analogies, right? Make it sort of simple. You look at centralization, and that's really what this comes down to, right? Is the difference between centralization and decentralization. I believe that decentralization, as ironic and paradoxical as it sounds, is going to be the answer for actually bringing people together. And with centralization, I often talk about it as like a dragon, right? Now, imagine you're feeding this dragon data, and this is a central information system that's sitting at any major company, institution. Let's just use Marriott as an example. They got hacked for 500 million records. They have a centralized dragon that's running pretty much their mothership. Now, the more data, the more systems, the more APIs that they're feeding into that thing, the slower it gets, the more sort of malnourished it gets as a dragon, and so forth. Now, say you're a dragon hunter and you want to go out and you want to slay the dragon. This is not a whole lot different than hacking. Hackers have to find exploits. They find one way in and they can bring the whole thing down, right? They don't swarm it. They can't. They have to come in with one way. When it came to the Marriott thing, a hacker got a hold of some SSH keys, brought them to their desktop, and they had a port into their whole mothership for months. And they just kept sitting there draining everything down to passports. Pretty impressive stuff, right? But also very scary. So if you hit that dragon with that spear in the wing or the heart or the head, you're taking the whole thing down, baby, right? So if you think about decentralization, which is not centralization like the dragon, I often akin it to like a school of fish or a flock of birds, right? Have you ever seen a flock of birds? They have this sort of autonomous way of moving. Somehow this one on this side knows what this one is doing with almost no delay. They move in one orchestrated unit, but they're all little birds, part of the flock, right? And this is where you'll hear words like nodes. You often hear the word node come up a lot in blockchain. Oh, I'm a node operator, or I manage a node, a validation node, or a Bitcoin miner, or whatever these things, these expressions may be. These are representations of one of those flock of birds, right? And so here you have this flock of birds, and in our hgtp sense, we have node operators all over the world that are anonymous. So not even Constellation, which us as a company, we only operate 3 foundational nodes. And then we have hundreds that are scattered amongst a community across the world in which we don't know these people's names, where they live, or anything. And they're all contributing to the network. So we are, in effect, a flock of birds that are decentralized. That's a much different mindset than the centralization. Now, if we go back to the hunting piece and somebody takes a spear and they decide to go hunt a flock of birds, much like you only can find exploits to take that network down, you may hit 2 or 3 of those birds if you're lucky, but you're not taking that whole flock down, right? And so then you think about how that solves a problem. Decentralization makes things more secure and more resilient through decentralizing the flock. Then the next piece is what happens if you want to add more data to it, more systems, more APIs. Well, you horizontally scale that network by just adding more birds to the flock. And then the last thing I'll say, and this gets a little bit into the technical stuff, is the consensus algorithm. What is the way that they all communicate with each other to have trust? In Bitcoin, you have the proof of work. You can look at proof of stake with Ethereum. All of these networks have their own sort of flavor. And I don't think one is better than the other. It's all use case dependent. But when we look at something like big data blockchains that are graph-based and they need to make really quick decisions, ours is called proof of reputable observation, which is essentially like each of these birds is monitoring each other saying, hey, are you doing the right thing on rejecting bad transactions or allowing only good data in? Are you trying to do anything nefarious? If no, or if the answers are yes in a positive sense, the score of that node goes up, allowing them to have more throughput. If they have a bad actor, the score goes down, not allowing things to come in. And that consensus algorithm is what keep that flock of birds or that school of fish in check. And so the last thing I'll say in this that kind of explains how hgtp creates that resilience through our flock of birds is that each of these birds is effectively a virtual machine. So what is a virtual machine? It's a computer. And a computer has three things. It has power, it has processing, and it has memory. As long as you have those three things, which fit on even smartwatches and sensors, they're all little computers, they can be a flock of birds, one of those birds of the flock on the network. And this is what allows true resiliency and decentralization is like the DoD or any commercial outfit that wants true decentralization, resiliency, and uptime on their network. You can put nodes on anything as long as it has those three attributes. And in 2024, that's about 1 million devices sitting in your home, you know? So it opens up this huge opportunity for blockchain networks to utilize existing infrastructure to fix the problems that are plaguing these centralized systems.
Wow, I love the analogy, and what I think we all love as an audience is our stories. So I'm sure there's been a lot of federal adoption challenges that you've gone through, and I know you've had quite the journey with that. And I think we all know that also the feds don't care about crypto. They want a cool network and secure and all that stuff. Maybe share some stories of like how this journey has transpired with them, like pushing back and really making you guys prove what you do is the solution.
Well, I would say us being based in America has a big part of it, right? Like there's some really big outfits like Polkadot, the Internet Computer. I mean, there's some amazing different ecosystems and blockchains out there, but by them being based in other parts of the world, sort of omits them from contending, even though I don't think that's part of what their focus group is. But I would be lying if I said working with the Fed, the federal government is fun. It's real tough, and it exposed me to a lot. I don't have a federal background, so I had to kind of get my sea legs. We went through a decode accelerator years back, and as of now, I've been working with the federal government for 5.5 years. I have clearance. And I've met with many 4-star generals, met with more people than I can imagine. The CIA, Custom Border Patrol. I mean, you name a 3-letter agency, I've basically pitched them or met with their people because they're all very fascinated by this. And, I will say that they do have really great programs such as the National Science Foundation, the SBIR and the STTR program. But to be completely transparent, maybe 5 to 8%, if lucky, will get through to the other side. It's a really grueling process. I'm really proud to say that we were one of those companies that got through it. And now we're slated to be in production in 2025. We've never missed a milestone or a deliverable to date. But to your point, when I first started, if I even said the word cryptocurrency in the room, I mean, you could hear a pin drop or you'd hear somebody, use a 4-letter word. We don't need that scam stuff. Oh, those are Ponzi schemes. That's human trafficking. I've heard it all. Bitcoin's nuking the planet, and that's a big one that I've had to work through is that, hey, other modalities of blockchain are actually more energy efficient than the status quo today. So let's let go of that piece. But Charlie, what I've seen over the last 5.5 years is they've warmed up to digital assets. And I use the term digital assets because that's kind of like the safe term for it. You know, if I use cryptocurrency, it feels nefarious. But also the pressures that have been coming through, such as sort of a lot of the stuff that has gone with the election stuff in the last cycle, Sam Bankman-Fried being the second largest donor to the Biden administration, doing one of the biggest rug pulls in the internet history or even blockchain or of any finance. We had the Luna crash. We had these things that put a really bad taste in people's mouths, especially the government. But for me to sit here and say that the government is anti-digital asset is just not true. They just don't express it very openly because they have to be careful. If they say the wrong thing, it sends the wrong signal and people start going crazy. So they have to keep their cards close to their chest. That said, those that may have seen it, the U.S. Marshals office just partnered up with Coinbase as their custody partner of choice for massive treasuries being run through the government. The government, I think, the federal government, I think, is the second largest Bitcoin holder in the world besides Satoshi. I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Probably from a lot of the stuff they've seized in some of these, shakedowns of bad actors and nefarious people. But to give people some comfort in that, this is the same thing that happened back with Web 1.0, back when we were talking about the directory on the internet. You used to be able to search for snowboard on a search engine and it would lead you to porno. I mean, whitehouse.com was a porno website, and it may still be. So people are like, oh, I'm going to check out what the government's doing. Like, oh my God, I see porn. It's like, oh, I didn't know there was a .gov, So there was a huge education curve. But unfortunately, I feel like bad actors always fill the cracks of early movements. And that's what I'm hoping we're starting to see the tail end of that era. And so because of that, I believe that the combination of blockchain and crypto is where the magic really happens. Blockchain technology is awesome. It's an amazing optimized network. It's just a new internet. But if we add in those micro payments of digital assets for those microservices, that's where all the magic happens. And I believe there's a way where even our government can interface in a healthy way for the benefit of humanity as a whole with our adversaries and use cryptocurrency as a way to transact good behavior between the two to keep the ledger and the balances, everything transparent and healthy. And I will give you a quick example of how that would work within a commercial space. I wrote a working standard for the AV world, partnered with folks like Toyota and GM and others on how autonomous vehicles communicate with each other. And the reason I love this use case is it's much like a flock of birds. Imagine all the cars right now are a flock of birds out there. Now imagine they all have a node on them, and now they have peer-to-peer decentralized communication without any need of that dragon. So they have a consensus algorithm that's letting them communicate. But there's one fundamental problem of why this hasn't come to fruition to date, even though we have all the technology to bolster an AV situational awareness world. They don't trust each other. Nobody knows who's going to own the network, right? And it's really sketchy when it comes to security. If there was any spoofing attempts or any malicious stuff that got in there, they could take down cars, drive semis straight into buildings, awful stuff, right? Blockchain protects the security. Blockchain creates the immutability to know who's sending what data to each other. But the exciting part, going back into that digital asset piece, is they can start to pay each other for sensitive information. Like, hey, I'm a Toyota at a stop. I have a camera that's showing somebody's about to get hit by a car. I'm sharing that with other cars that are around me that are Fords or GMs that I violently disagree with or compete with. But I get the attribution and credit of that data contributed, and the payment comes to me because we have all just saved insurance companies, lives, medical companies, a bunch of money from having to deal, including a city, with a tragic accident. And that's just one expression of where I believe the federal government is going to start incorporating digital assets in a meaningful way into all of their workflows, whether it be contractors or even internal three-letter agencies. And I truly believe all the way down to adversarial communications.
All right, so let's talk about some of these three-letter word agencies. I love that word, consortia, and you're basically building a network of all these large agencies now that the DoD has given you your check of approval. Maybe share with us like how you're seeing the NSF and some of these other part of your consortia, like really working towards bigger solutions and, and this great vision that we're all seeing as potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's all really started to kind of take off in the last 2 years. Like I said, prior to that, they would tell me to pound sand or, hey, let's keep this stuff away. I don't know what it was. I wish I did. That was the real turning point for the sentiment when it comes to the federal government. But it happened, right? And the National Science Foundation is one of the biggest leaders in pushing digital asset production use cases out into the world. And this really came forth for us when we got in touch with the National DigiFoundry, which is known as the NDF. You can digifoundry.org, I believe, but you can Google it. And it's a National Science Foundation grant that was really set aside to be the cross-section between industry and federal around blockchain and emerging digital asset use cases, not research and development, but true production go-to-market use cases. The consortia, we were one of the founding members. There's other really great entities such as U.S. Space Force, the U.S. Treasury, State Department, NASA, Microsoft. The list is really impressive. They built a DAO functioning operational blockchain on our network, in which they built a shadow token that allows members like NASA and others to use cryptocurrency that's non-listed on exchanges to vote for work groups that get funded, access to education, and so forth. And multiple solutions are being built currently within this consortia. I guess the point being is that this is no longer like, hey, let's keep an eye on this and do some research and see what it's about, versus, nope, we believe in this stuff. We've seen the ETFs that have taken place in the last year. We've seen the stuff that's happened around global finance and regulation that's bubbling up. Now's the time for America to take some real strong moves and bring this stuff into the workflows of what I would say is the Web3 curious. A lot of these companies, no matter how much money and how big they are, I often look at it as like a pool party that everybody's standing around the pool with a cocktail. We're all supposed to be swimming, but nobody's been bold enough to jump in yet, right? Like, so, hey, we got to get somebody in the pool before I put my shorts on. And now people are starting to hang out in the pool. Have they gone in the deep end yet? Some, but not everybody's still kind of hanging out in the shallow end, keeping it safe, but people are starting to get in the pool. And that means that we're going to start seeing a lot more regulation, a lot more compliance come around, which I believe is not going to stifle, but rather propel innovation. Largely people think regulation, they're like, they're going to kill all my tokens. All this stuff's going away. Look out, the boogeyman. I violently disagree with that. And I think that we need regulation now more than ever. I am a big believer in meme coins. However, when you have a coin like, say, Nazi coin get a bigger a market cap in a matter of weeks than Amazon did in 8 years, something needs to be, I guess, handled there, right? And I'm not saying kill it, just means there might need to be an adult in the room. And we're starting to see that happen, which is great. Not to say I think that meme coins are going to continue to flourish. I think there's a ton of really great use cases out there. But I think some of these guardrails are going to keep us out of trouble and make people feel a little bit better about getting into the investment layer of starting to stack cryptocurrency or track projects or go deeper into the education of understanding what they are.
Mm-hmm. The other, I guess, thing I like that you guys are really embracing is academia. Like the story you shared with the beginning of the internet was primarily DoD, but the other part of that back in the day were these top tier universities. Why don't you share with us a little bit what universities you're seeing and the projects that they're excited about with blockchain technology and working with Constellation?
Yeah, so we've been working with universities since the beginning of our company, largely because at anything that's emerging, it's very R&D focused, and that's where universities shine. And I've seen an evolution in a very major way with these universities. And I'm not going to list off all the ones that we're connected to, but I'll mention a couple and some of the things we're doing with them. I would say, probably our oldest and favorite is Arizona State University. A lot of people don't know that they are probably one of the most robust business programs around blockchain. Big shout out to Dr. Dragon, their professor that drives that. A good example is that they used to be within the School of our research, applied research and development. And within the last 12 months, they've shifted over into a business school that is focused around 3 major pillars: AI, marketplaces, data marketplaces, and blockchain. And those three areas have a robust world of research students that are doing things for Fortune 500 companies, trying to help them find their way. And Constellation is blended into the mix of that, and we're super, super proud of that. That said, money always reigns supreme, right? Like, so getting these grants, getting anything federal that comes in and sort of accelerates that stuff, or any of that IRAD, the innovation, research, and development money that comes from these Fortune 500 companies, huge. That stuff helps a ton in not only motivating some of the best minds out there against it, but actually bringing this stuff to market. Chaminade University in Hawaii, we're about to put out a press release with them. I've worked with them as well as Portland State University back in the day in their blockchain certificate program on building a curriculum for students, certification courses that help educate them on blockchain and digital assets that is certified by the university, as well as internship programs and so forth. But with Chaminade, we just wrapped ours up, and I haven't really been talking a whole lot about it, but I guess I will at some point here. Was sponsored largely by the National Science Foundation. And that's where I think that government oversight is really what brings this stuff to reality. Without it, like, universities don't have a lot of money. They just don't. But especially students, right? And so we did this whole thing with Chaminade by sending them a bunch of our door traffic miners, these sensors that allow people to mine crypto on our network for exchanging data. We gave them to all these students. We pro bono, here, take these things, slap them up, start researching them, tell us what you think. And where we netted out was on a project called Better Weather, something that I coined and came up with. And I said, hey guys, I think we should do this. And they were like, all right, let's do this. Where I believe the state of Hawaii has the ability to have the most up-to-date real-time weather data feed in the entire world based off of these sensors. And the idea is that, as we know, with the fires that took place in the last year that were detrimental, could there have been a way for us to have detected them quicker? Could there have been a way to move people around more meaningful? And I believe the answer is yes. But a lot of that just relies on sensor technology, right? Sometimes when these sensors from NOAA, or even the conical sensor that's out there a million miles away on behalf of NOAA monitoring the sun, once radiation hits that, you got 15 minutes before we have to make some hard decisions. And so therefore, how do we get more sensors in more areas that can provide a bigger footprint and do it in a way that everybody wins? This is where sort of my heal the world altruistic bone is, that I do believe there's abundance for all and that we can all win. And if we look at the better weather use case, say you're a Hawaiian and either the state sponsors this or you decide to pony up your own money, you buy one of two sensors, a $60 sensor that measures temperature and moisture, or you can pay $150 and do one that does all such sorts of stuff like wind speed and pressure and whatnot, and you get a different reward balance for each. Put this thing up in your residence. You now have a lat long proving that you're attributed to a residence. And once that thing is up, it is now putting that real-time data on a blockchain and rewarding you in a cryptocurrency that goes into your wallet, and it's yours to do what you want with. Microservice, micropayment, and then if you want to micro invest, you can do that as well. And once this cryptocurrency is in your wallet and you pay off one of these devices, you're now making nothing but upside. You're getting money for contributing one of the most valuable thing, which is real-time localized weather. We get enough of these sensors across the islands. You have the most insane real-time situational awareness. You start adding that to things like we said, autonomous vehicles, smoke detectors, things that can give us awareness in a way that can contribute cryptocurrency for the contribution of that data is a really beautiful thing. And so this is something that I'm working on with the students. We're kicking off the development of this in January. And it's a solution that I believe can be duplicated to pretty much everywhere in the world where everybody can win, because weather has become, as we all know, a pretty funky thing. So just to answer your question, this explains how universities play such a huge role, but also in the combination of the public sector of the federal government, you can make some awesome things happen. And the students are where the future is at, full stop.
That's awesome. All right, let's talk a little bit more about use cases since you brought it up. And if you want, you can kind of silo it between DoD, and then you guys just had a hackathon where, as a network or a protocol, you want other people to come in and develop and be creative and solve problems using your technology or your foundation. Maybe share some things that you are excited about, and then also make sure to tease the conference that's coming up to reveal some of these winners and participants.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely, bud. So we are an open source technology, and I think that's a big thing to underscore. If you think about Apple, Microsoft, and Linux, out of those three, we're much more like Linux than the other two. I would love to make sexy products like Apple and do amazing partner programs like Microsoft, but I love the Linux, hey, free for all. Anybody that's building a solution in their basement, out some kid in a basement somewhere is using the same technology that the federal government has access to. And I think that's really, really badass, right? And so for that reason, we've decided to do our first hackathon in the last year. And the reason why it was our first is because November of last year was the first time we opened up our public internet, basically meaning that if our public blockchain, if you will, meaning that before that, if we wanted to build something, we'd have to customize it internally. Now that it's an open network, anybody can grab our tools or documentation and build their own blockchain network or mint their own cryptocurrency and do as they wish with it. And that was always a dream come true for me. So it was a big moment, right? And so we ran this hackathon for 2 months. We had some really great sponsors such as IBM and Panasonic, the National DigiFoundry. Again, we want to show that legacy true Web 2 leaders have interest in this and that they're curious and they want to participate. So I think something like 700 people participated, which whittled down to about 35, 40 projects, which we were very happy with. And Charlie, just to be completely candid with you, I'm a smart guy, but I'm not smart enough to stress test or peer review our network. I just, there's co-algebra in there and I wasn't a very good algebra student. Let's just say that. So the proof is in the pudding, right? The moment you hand the keys unbridled over to the public and say, okay, go forth and do stuff, you're only about 10 minutes away from somebody coming back and saying, network's crashing, it's not working, documentation sucks, the throughput's not there, I can't get this to work, whatever those may be. And we didn't hear any of that. We did have people that had questions on approach and they were maybe a little bit overwhelmed because they hadn't worked with our network before. But some of the feedback we got back from the constituents was, holy cow, you have the most extensible and configurable and customizable blockchain I've ever seen. 80% of our submissions were data focused, which made me very happy. And I only say that because a lot of people say blockchain, they really mean crypto, like it's always a crypto world, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I was really happy to see it break out and be like, whoa, wait a minute. What if we started using this for things such as, there's one called AutoSite, right? AutoSite, which is sort of that closed loop, which I was talking about with the better weather, is you just take your cell phone, everybody's got one, you mount it on your dashboard, so you may have to purchase a mount. This thing then takes pictures while you're driving. Those pictures are validated and appended the metadata to a blockchain that shows the lat long and the proof of movement. And those pictures are then uploaded onto a portal that has a map, and those images can be used in mass or in bulk to train AI algorithms that need that street view localized data from a car. Really, really cool stuff right there, right? For that to come out of a hackathon shows that people are really starting to understand that closed loop of like, wow, we can all win. The AI companies win. The people that are contributing the images win, right? The node validators that are validating that data on the back end, they win, right? Like, it's this really amazing thing that goes back to that Web3, value-based economy that we're going to start to see happen through some of these expressions. So I could sit here and go through a bunch of the use cases of the different hackathon entries, but people can check them out through our website and get access to it. But I'm very pleased that not only did nothing break, not that I expected it to, but you never know, but that people found a ton of value in it. And I think it's going to set us up for the next hackathon to be a real banger.
Yeah, I love that. And so High Def 2024 is your mini conference that you're hosting in San Francisco to kind of, I guess, unify the community, but also share some of the, what you guys have been accomplishing, and obviously some of the winners of the hackathon. And be sure to, I've been posting on here the constellationnetwork.io. That is a free virtual participation, but there are tickets if you're in that area or want to travel. So definitely want to share with everyone that opportunity. So can you maybe share a little bit of, like, I guess pivoting back a little bit towards crypto and DAG, like how you guys are providing utility with your token, and how people or builders, creators can benefit from that?
Yeah, I mean, so quickly on high def, yeah, it's next week on the 24th of October, $150 if you're in San Francisco to attend in person. It's a full day event from 8 to 4 at the One Hotel in the Embarcadero, downtown San Francisco. But if you can't be there in person, please join free. Even if you dip in for one or two of the panels, you're going to get exposed to things that are unique to our ecosystem that you won't hear anywhere else. And we're making a lot of announcements on that day. So that's my plug on high def. To talk a little bit about the cryptocurrency. So yeah, we are listed on a few exchanges. If you go to Constellation's website, I think there's a buy DAG button up in the corner. You can find our token and learn all about it from there, whether you want to just buy it directly from one of our vendors like C14 or Uphold. They have ways where you can just pay for it using a credit card. Or if you want to buy it off of an exchange, you can do that as well. And I don't give any financial advice. That's certainly the no zone. But our token is really based off of the management and validation of data. So it is a validation token. It is a utility token. And so largely our focus is around bringing as much data on chain as we possibly can. And not just garbage data, but real valuable data that needs to be validated, that needs to be consumed, analyzed, ran into AI algorithms, whatever it may be. And so those are some of the announcements of the integrations and some of the partnerships and what we've done are going to be happening at High Def next week. So with that utility token, DAG, of course, much like any cryptocurrency, you can buy, sell, and trade it. But we created our own token standard, which gets a little bit complicated for those that aren't super nerdy with this space, is that Ethereum reigns supreme when it comes to tokens. I would say you've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana that make up pretty much 99% of the entire industry when it comes to token minting. And God bless Ethereum for coming up with the ICO. I want to give a shout out to J.R. Willett, who I went to high school with. I graduated with 16 kids. And the guy sitting next to me invented the ICO, which is nuts, in backwoods Oregon. So wow. Pretty cool stuff. So you can check them out. But the ICO allowed people to create their own cryptocurrency on Ethereum. And so we decided to follow suit. Since Ethereum is expensive to handle and slow to move, we wanted to fix that with our own token standard we call L0. And that's based off of our global L0 blockchain, which gets a little nerdy, and I won't go into that. But that's why we decided to call it that. This means that anybody can launch their own token. We recently launched one called Alpaca, which is a meme token that, rewards people for doing different activities. We did, I think, the first of its kind ever, a native integration with Twitter, where if you use certain hashtags or mention Constellation, tokens immediately go into your wallet that's set up based off your activity, which is super cool. And so the ability to mint these tokens, since we own the L0 network, you'll be able to swap them on our upcoming announcement of our DEX at zero transaction fees. So I believe that while fractionalizing the pipes of communication and finances is paramount, moving the stuff is what's going to make it win, right? And right now, and Charlie, you can't disagree with me, it's a bitch to move to cryptocurrency. Every time I open MetaMask, I start to get trembles and shakes, and I'm seeing things I don't know what they are. Mm-hmm. So Constellation has its own wallet called Stargazer. You can run it on an Android phone, an iOS phone, or an extension on Brave or Chrome. And man, if you send DAG peer-to-peer, if you and I had our phones open and I sent you some, people would see how it happens feeless and instantly. It's super impressive, right? And so because of this, anybody can use or integrate the Constellation Stargazer wallet into their decentralized application or even their Web2 website and start to utilize it with different functionalities within their digital workflow to bring crypto in for payments, transferring, and whatnot. But the magic comes when you start minting your own cryptocurrency, launch your own L0 token, and start utilizing your own utility of whatever that use case may be. In which case, like the auto site, they have their own token that they're planning on launching that is specific to the transferring and gathering of auto images for AI algorithms, right? So that kind of grounds why people would want to create their own currency and why they would want to use our decentralized exchange to transfer them and manage them. But it goes further, and I don't want to overstep or glaze over the node operators, because if we go back to the flock of birds and those hundreds of community members around the world that are managing our network through uptime of resources by, contributing virtual machines, which are those computers for the validation of the transaction of data, they get rewarded in DAG. They get cryptocurrency, and a lot of folks have made a lot of money running these node operators on all different ecosystems. Doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin miners. Some of those Bitcoin miners have made so much dough. But as we all know that are in the industry, it's not an easy feat, right? It's really been separated for those that are truly nerdy, that know how to get their hands dirty. They're high risk, high reward. And we're trying to really focus on normalizing it to make it really easy deployment, easy management for node operators that want to participate either in our global network, or maybe they're attracted to a project that's focused on clean water in third world countries. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. And they want to contribute, and they want to be a node operator for that project, so that they're contributing to that and they're getting rewards from that. And they feel really good because they're in line with the ethos of whatever the project or metagraph or application is that they're supporting. So there's a whole bunch of robust stuff when it comes to DeFi staking, node management, and just general transfers that candidly, I'm not a true expert in, but I certainly believe in the emergence of this. And I think it's only going to get better.
Absolutely. And so you have some other solutions, and I guess connecting all those dots. One is the Stargazer wallet. And then you mentioned earlier, and I'm a big believer in this, in microservices, micropayments, your feeless network and fast. How do you kind of see all this evolving where us as users don't even know we're using something on the blockchain?
Yeah. Man, I've always wanted this to be a commodity. I'm really excited when it does become a commodity, just like the internet, right? Does anybody know what a URL means? Does anybody know what hgtp means? Do they even have any idea how this godlike technology works? Ask somebody how one of their phones works. They're like, I have no idea. All I care is that I pay money and it works. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we've gotten almost to a phase of over-educating right now, much more than we saw with the early internet. Yeah, there were expressions where people try to explain how private keys work with email and SMTP and all that stuff. But even then, most people don't know what POP is or any of these protocols that allow those types of modalities to work. And I'm really hoping that day comes sooner than later with blockchain, that people don't care as long as it's in place and their life is getting better. I've often said that I would love to see Constellation be like that Intel Inside sticker, right? Like that has the check mark that, oh, I'm not buying a laptop. Look at it. Oh, there's an Intel inside that thing. I know it's good. I'm going to buy it, right? And that gives them the validation they need. And I think that's sort of a gross example, more in the sense of blockchain being, hey, do I have that check mark that everything I'm seeing is truthful? Because right now, when it comes to things like espionage, deep fakes, AI, it's unbelievable. I'm at a place right now where I coach younger people that, hey, it's a good place to start, that you shouldn't believe anything you see on a screen and have it build your trust from there, versus trusting it and trying to validate it's not truthful from there. We're now in the world of la la land, and anything you say you can't see, you can't trust, right? They may have a recording of a political person saying something absolutely awful, but you have no idea if it's real or not. You have to trust an authority, a centralized authority, that it is, and they all have ties into each other, right? So therefore, I believe that we're going to get to a time very soon here where you're going to see that check mark. But to take it a step further, you can click on it and be able to see all the math, not necessarily the math, but the paper trail, if you will, of to where the source came from. And that's why that trustworthy AI and proof of source use case is so dear to me, is because right now it kills me that people are opening ChatGPT and asking it questions like, how many rocks should I eat every day? And it tells them 3, and they believe it. I mean, that's an overstatement, but everybody just trusts it because it does it so fast and it's magical and it's, it's alluring. There's no contemplation of like, well, how do I know if it's right? And I don't know if you've seen that ChatGPT lately has had, they added that thing at the bottom. It's like, hey, ChatGPT makes mistakes. Make sure you check your work. It's like, what do you mean check your work? Like, what am I going to do? I can't do nothing. This is a black box, right?
Yeah.
But soon enough, it's going to have a check mark and it's going to have an assurance score that's going to say, hey, this answer came from 4 data sources. 3 of them have been validated. 1 has not. You have a 75% assurance score. Now you have to trust your gut if you're going to want to take that information and move forward. But right now, we just look at stuff on a screen and we're like, all right, sounds good. Looks like I'm going to sell my house and invest it all in penny stocks. It's like, wait, hold on.
All right. So we have about a little less than 2 minutes left. And I love in talking to you how you also concur that this is just a nascent industry. There's plenty of people out there that feel like because they missed the Bitcoin boom, we're 14 years into this. And then, the rest of the altcoin and the development of blockchain is like an infantile type of, age range. Maybe kind of like leave us with, your take on this is just the beginning and it's just getting started.
Yeah. I mean, I'll make it quick because, the early internet, it was all about spam, right? And remember, you'd click on a link and next thing you know, your computer's screwed. You have to reformat your hard drive or whatever. We're sort of in that same phase right now that you have to like do triple due diligence on things, check everything twice, make sure if you're going to send a crypto transaction, do a test transaction first of a small amount, just to make sure you feel comfortable. Like, don't trust anyone. Like, I don't know what else there is to say. It's kind of funny that we have this godlike technology that's going to create trustworthy communication and financial sovereignty that is so untrustworthy right now. And that's just largely because of bad actors. But it's going to get better. And even as I'm talking, it's getting better right now. Every day is going to get better. But just, be smart. Talk to people that have been in it for a while and listen to them, right? There's people that are really passionate about this, like Charlie and myself. But that doesn't mean they know everything. So don't take them word for word and just listen to what their opinions are. But yeah, I would say get excited. Things are about to get a lot more abundant for all of us.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing your expertise and congratulations on what you've built so far. We all feel like this is just the beginning. So thank you for sharing with us today, Diggles. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Charlie. Thank you so much.